What if boundaries were never meant to feel like walls? What if protection didn't require tension and saying no didn't require becoming someone you're not? So many of us learn boundaries through pain. We learn to brace, to harden, to distance ourselves just enough to survive. But what if the most sustainable boundaries aren't built from defense, but from self-connection? Today, we're exploring what it means to create boundaries without armor. Boundaries that are clear, grounded, and alive without requiring you to shut down, toughen up, or disappear. Welcome, everybody, back to the Soul Talk podcast. I'm Marybeth Hrim. I am a licensed mental health therapist. I'm a coach and a guide for this Living Unmasked journey. If you're new here, this series is about what happens after you stop performing, after you loosen the masks and begin living from the inside out. And this week, week 3, we're stepping into something tender and powerful. Boundaries without armor. Boundaries that don't require hardness. And before we go any further, if this work resonates with you, if these conversations support your nervous system, your relationships, or your sense of self, I invite you to subscribe to my YouTube channel, where I share longer conversations, guided meditations, and reflections to help you live unmasked in real life, not just in theory. So let's get started. So here's a question. Why do they often feel hard? Let's start here. Because for many people, boundaries feel sharp. They feel abrupt. They feel like something you have to gear up for. And that's not because boundaries are inherently harsh. It's because many of us learned boundaries through threat. You may have learned to say no only after you are exhausted, to distance instead of differentiate, to withdraw instead of express, and to protect yourself by becoming smaller or harder. So boundaries became associated with conflict, with rejection, guilt, fear of being too much or not enough. And from a nervous system perspective, this makes sense. If your system learned that closeness wasn't safe, then boundaries become a survival strategy, not a relational one. Armor was never about strength. It was about staying intact. So what's the difference between armor and boundaries? And let's look at this important distinction. Because armor says, I need to protect myself from you. Boundaries say, I am connected to myself. Armor tightens. Boundaries ground. Armor disconnects you from sensation. Boundaries keep you present in your body. Armor is reactive. Boundaries are responsive. And here's the key insight. Where you are deeply connected, or shall I say, when you are deeply connected to yourself, boundaries don't need to be loud or forceful. They don't need to be explained endlessly. They don't need justification. They don't need anger to carry them. They arise naturally from clarity. Healthy boundaries are not about controlling others. They're about honoring your internal experience. This is where so many conversations miss the mark on boundaries. Boundaries aren't just scripts or statements or rules. They're felt experiences. Before you can express a boundary outwardly, you need to feel it inwardly. Ask yourself, where do I feel tight? Where do I feel depleted? Where do I feel myself pulling away? Where do I feel a quiet no or a gentle not right now? Boundaries without armor begin with self-attunement. Because when you trust your internal signals, you don't need to perform strength. So why hard boundaries often backfire? When boundaries come from armor, they often create distance instead of clarity. They invite power struggles, leaving you feeling isolated afterward and also feeling really bad about yourself. It requires constant reinforcement. That's because armor is exhausting. Plus, it's extremely heavy to carry around. If you've ever set a boundary and felt shaky afterward, guilty, disconnected from yourself, or like you had to stay on guard, that boundary may have been protective, but not integrated. See, boundaries without armor feel different. They feel calm. They feel rooted, clear, sustainable. Not because the situation is easy, but because you are with yourself. So what soft boundaries actually look like? Let's redefine softness. Soft boundaries are not weak. They are porous, but intentional. They sound like, that doesn't work for me. I need to slow this down. I'm noticing I'm reaching my limit. I'm not available for that right now. They don't require over-explaining, apologizing for existing, emotional shutdown. See, soft boundaries come from a regulated nervous system. And regulation creates authority without force. How do we practice boundaries in the body? Here's something I want you to notice. So before you speak a boundary, feel your feet. Feel the support beneath you. Feel your breath move. Boundaries land best when they are embodied. So try this. Pause before responding. Because when we don't pause, we're not responding, we're actually reacting. So pause before and then respond. Check in with your body. Let your voice match your nervous system, not your fear. This is how boundaries stop feeling performative and start feeling true. So living unmasked through boundaries doesn't mean being endlessly open. It means being honest with yourself first. Boundaries without armor say, I don't need to disappear to be safe. I don't need to be hardened to be respected. I can stay connected to myself, even here. And that's a radical shift. And as we continue this living unmasked journey, remember this: the strongest boundaries are not built from defense. They are built from self-trust. And if this conversation resonated with you, I invite you to subscribe to my YouTube channel, where I share meditations, reflections, and conversations to support your nervous system and your becoming. And if this episode stirred something tender in you, share it with someone. Stay close. Listen to it again. This work unfolds gently over time. I want to thank you so much for being here today with me. And keep living from the inside out. Until next time, I'm Marybeth Hrim.